Welcome to the Unit 2 Day 3 video where we will calculate the slope of a line. Now slope is the rise of the line over the run, and you can see that I spelt rise incorrectly on purpose. That's to remind you that y's will always go on the top. The difference in y values will always go on the top, and you will divide by whatever the run horizontally is. And I always calculate my slope left to right. The way that I calculate slope is to identify two lines, or 2 points on the line rather, that are right on the grid. And what I mean by that is it's where these gray lines intersect and it's a nice even point. I can see where it touches. And this one's pretty close. I'm going to go with that one and assume that that is also a point. The first thing I'll calculate is the rise. How far did I move up or down? In this case, I'm going left to right again. And I can see that going left to right, I went up. And I went up 1, 2, 3 units. Now you could have also done 3 units on the left side as well. But I can see that the rise of this line is 3 units. Okay, and actually I'll color code that. I'll make the y's red like I normally do. The rise is 3. And then the run, how far did I run over left to right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the slope of this line is 3 divided by 5. That tells me how steep the line is. On this example, I do the same process. I first find what's called a lattice point, a point that's right on the grid. And I think this one's pretty close. It doesn't look exact, but that's the one I'm going to go with. There's a point there. And it looks like right here is the other point. Okay, and you could see that if I'm moving left to right, that my line slopes downward. And so my rise, in this case, will be negative. I went down 3, going left to right. And I ran across 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So my slope on this line is negative 3 over 5. Now when my slope is negative, that means as I go left to right, my line is going to slope downward. On this one, I have many points I could choose from that are right on the grid. And so I'm going to identify these 2 points. Now, if I go left to right, what is my rise? Did I go up or down? No, I did not. My rise would be 0, and my run will be the distance horizontally, 3, 0 over 3. So what's my slope? What's 0 divided by 3? Well, that's just 0. My slope of this line, which is horizontal, is 0. These are called horizontal lines because they look like the horizon. They're completely straight left and right. What about this one? Well, I've identified 2 points here, negative 3, negative 3, negative 3, positive 2. Well, the rise would be how much I went up. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I went 5 up. How much did I run horizontally? Well, I did not run any horizontally. I did not move left or right. So now I have a slope that's 5 divided by 0, and that's the problem. 5 divided by 0, I cannot divide a number by 0. So the slope is undefined. We do not have a definition that tells us what 5 divided by 0 is. I spelt that wrong, I'm sorry. Undefined. This is called a vertical line because it goes up and down. So there are 4 types of slopes. We have a positive slope where I rise from left to right, and you can see that it's like I'm going uphill as I go left to right. That means the slope is positive. Now, from this point on, the letter M is going to represent slope. That's important. When you see the letter M, that represents slope. M less than 0, that means M is negative. That means I have a negative slope and I fall from left to right. It means my line is sloping downward from left to right. 0 slope, when M is equal to 0, is horizontal, and that means that there's no slope. And finally, the fourth type of slope is undefined, which means that it's not defined, right? The difference between these two, the horizontal and vertical, is that there is a slope for horizontal lines, and there is not a slope for the vertical lines. So we say there is a 0 slope for horizontal lines, and there is no defined slope for vertical lines. Sometimes we don't have a picture, and when that happens and I have 2 points and I need to calculate the slope, you have to identify the x values and the y values of each point, and you'll have to find the difference in y and the difference in x. What does the word difference mean? It means to subtract. Now notice that the formula says y2, y sub 2 minus y sub 1. So that means I need to identify the second y value and subtract the first y value. So I'm going to call negative 1 y2 and positive 2 y1. So I'm going to have negative 1 subtract, and notice I put the framework in here because the thing I'm subtracting might also be negative. And then on the denominator I have x2 minus x1, and it doesn't matter which way you go, but you have to be consistent. I went from right to left, so I have to make sure that if I go right to left on the top, on the y values, I have to go right to left on the bottom. So I have 4 minus, and I'll put the framework in, negative 5. Negative 1 minus 2, negative 1, take 2 away, negative 3. And you can use a calculator on these if you're still not comfortable subtracting. 4 minus a negative 5, that's like adding the opposite, so 4 plus 5, 9. So that means my slope is negative 3 over positive 9, and I need to simplify this by dividing by 3. If I divide the numerator by 3, I get negative 1. Divide the denominator by 3, I get 3. Slope M is negative 1/3. So I'm going to do this again to find the slope between these 2 points. Again, I identify y2 and y1. I always go from right to left, but I want to show you that it's possible to go this way. So I could do 5 subtract negative 1. And again, I'm going to put that in parentheses to remind myself that I need to pay very close attention to the sign, whether it's positive or negative. Now notice that on this case, I went from left to right, and that's okay as long as on the denominator for x2 and x1 that I do the same order. So I'm going to do 0 take away. Again, I'm going to use that framework, the parentheses, the 3. 0 minus 3. It's very important to double check. I see a lot of errors in my students' work when they are careless about which numbers they're subtracting. So that's why I draw these lines to make sure I link up the correct numbers. 5 minus negative 1 is 6. So I'm subtracting a negative, that makes an adding, the opposite. So I add positive 1 to 5. 0 minus 3. Well, 0 take away 3 is negative 3. I have to simplify this fraction. 6 divided by negative 3 is negative 2. My slope, M, is negative 2. Let's do a few more examples. So let's identify, and again, I usually do y2 minus y1, rise over run. That's how I remember this formula, y's over the run. So I have -1 take away, put the framework in there, -1 take away, and notice how I link these together, at least I'm trying to, but my pen's not cooperating. -1 take away +2, then I have 6 minus 6. And again, I put the framework in to help myself remember what the sign was. -1 minus 2, -3. 6 minus 6 is 0. Well, I cannot divide by 0. You'd get an error if you used a calculator. So m is undefined. This is a vertical line. It's not 0 slope, it's undefined because I'm dividing by 0. If I divide by 0, this is a vertical line. And if you think about putting this on a graph, I'd go, 6 over, here's y and here's x. It'd be 6 over, and I'd have 6, 2, and 6, -1. 6, 2, 6, -1. And you see they line up on a vertical line. Again, y minus y, y2 minus y1, and I went from right to left. Sorry. So I'd have 1 take away 1 divided by 3 take away 4. Again, I'm going to use the framework. And on this example, 3 minus 4 is -1, and in the numerator, 1 minus 1, 0. And 0 divided by -1, m is 0, and this is a horizontal line. Think about plotting these points on the coordinate graph. 4, 1, it's right here, and 3, 1 would be right there. They're next to each other, left and right. Horizontal line, 0 slope. Thanks for watching.